and this is the second part of the tutorial for the Keepsake Wallet journal that I'm sharing with you. Some of the measurements will be different for this particular album just because of the fact that I did make it with chipboard rather than just paper. Here, what I'm showing you is how to add the hinges for what will be the addition of the pages for the inside of this book. You can use your keepsake die to cut out the hinge piece here. And of course, for this particular book, you can use two. If you want to have more room, however, for your pages, I would recommend that you not use every single one of the pages or hinges here, but I'll explain a little more later. Here, what I'm showing you is how to apply the adhesive to the back of this hinge piece. And this may not be new to you, but if it is, then you basically would follow the score lines. It will give you a gauge as to where to place your adhesive. And as you see there, you then get 3 mountain folds per piece. Now, here's where I cut away about 1/8 of an inch from each piece. And this is again because of the bulk of the particular journal that I made. But on both sides here where the hinges will fit, I place these pieces of paper, and as you can see there, I then remove the backing and then press firmly to make sure that my hinges are nice and straight. And there you see where I start folding the book to ensure that my hinges do have room to move around in that book and that they're not getting pinched with the paper. Basically, this is going to be a gatefold type journal. As you can see there, that's what it'll look like from the top. And you can tell there is a ribbon, kind of a, I don't know how to say that in English, but on the outside, the trim, that's the word I was looking for. So that's what I was checking there, was because of the bulk of that trim and the thin chipboard, then I needed room there for those hinges. Now these papers here are 8 by 6.5 and 8 by 6. The ones that measure 8 by 6.5, I scored at 1/2 inch on that 6.5 inch side. I then placed adhesive on that one tab and on the opposite side of that. So you'll see why in a moment. This will all start making sense, but you can apply adhesive, and this is only one way to do a page. I just wanted to clarify that. So as you can see, I've only done 3 pages in this manner, but I then take off the little tabs there on the corners. What I did was I cut away about 45-degree angles from that tab that I folded, and there I placed liquid adhesive. And now here this starts making sense where I fold that over and I have my 2 pieces of paper. Now they both essentially measure the same, which is 8 by 6. And I have 3 pages like this that I'll be placing in this book. This allows you to have a top pocket on your pages, which you can do, you don't have to, but again, it's just one style of page. So I keep adhering these the same way, placing one tab over the other, overlapping the page. And then I, of course, use the grid in the background to help me. And you can do it right to left or left to right, whichever way you're more comfortable doing that. So there are my 3 pages, and this is just the beginning of this book. You can then apply these to your hinges. Now, what I did here in this case was that I did have the adhesive on the page instead of on the hinge, but either way is fine. You just then remove the backing to that adhesive, line it up, and make sure it's the same distance from top to bottom. And then you can take away the liner of the opposing page, flip it over, and then there you go. You can adhere your first page to your journal or album. Now for my first page, here's what I did. I took the largest decorative die from the Keepsake collection. You can see it on the right-hand corner of the screen. I double matted it with a larger piece of lavender paper. And then I took this die set that I have in my collection, and it cuts a slit, as you can tell there, from the paper that creates a pocket. And then you can adhere that decorative piece you just saw me putting on the paper on top. It makes a really pretty pocket. Now I'm only adhering the edges of this paper and placing adhesive above the pocket. And it'll make sense once it's on the page, and this is because you want to be able to place your little tags in there but also have that page nice and adhered onto the background page without having it shift or buckle. So I removed the backing to that adhesive, and this is going to be my very first page. And again, it's my first time working with these dies, so I tried to make sure that I added pages that were fun and would make sense, but I kind of learned a few things along the way. So here is the back of that page now. I took another lavender piece of paper, and this is going to be the matting on this page. Of course, a lot of adhesive there, but this allowed me to have a piece of paper here for a nice background. And then I'm placing a small little magnet there in the center. I've also cut out a hinge, and this measures 6 inches by 4. I folded it in half, and I tapered the corners. And now this next piece is from another keepsake collection. And what I'm doing is I folded that piece of paper, the black paper. I cut it out with the die that's about 7 1/4 inches tall. And it gave me that black paper that you will see me add here. But to cover the hinge, the first thing that I wanted to do was to again use a decorative die from the keepsake collection. I cut out this pretty piece of paper here with the lines on it, and that covers the hinge because you want a nice clean finish to your book. So here you see me taking the adhesive away, or the cover to the adhesive, and now I can place this page here right to the edge, and this will give me a folding page. Nice and simple, but it's nice and clean. The finish is pretty because of the fact that I added that double matting there. So that's just one style page that you can do, and you can continue with this. You can add as many hinges as you like, so long as you have room on your page and it doesn't compete with the binding of your book, of course. Now here's my second little magnet. I just want to make sure that it matches the first one, and it'll be hidden behind the decorative paper. So I placed it closest to the actual initial page there. And of course, if you have any questions on this tutorial, feel free to ask me in the comments down below. This may not be for a beginner, but of course, if you pause the video, it'll be easy to follow. I just wanted to make sure that I could fit as many pages into this particular tutorial as possible. So here you see the page starts looking prettier because it's getting the matting on here, and then you can add a tab on the side if you want to, but I'm going to show you one way that I like to decorate my pages. Now this is a 3D embossing folder from Crafter's Companion. I added ink to it, and I'm adding my matted page there. I ran it through my machine, and you can tell now that dry embossing allowed my paper to have that floral pattern, and I inked it again, added that pretty paper on top, and now I have a textured page to my book rather than just a plain flat page. It really adds dimension to a book. Now, of course, to use my die collection, I cut out a few of these little tabs. This one happens to be in the shape of a key. So I just adhered it to the side of this little page here. And the reason being that this will allow the person who opens the page to know that this is something that they can use to open the page. And it's also decorative and pretty, of course. So here I'm just adding adhesive to make sure that that can then be on this page. And I thought I might make it a side loading little pocket as well, but I later changed my mind. But that would be an option, of course, to leave it as such. So that there you see that you can also use the little pocket from the keepsake wallet collection. It adds this gorgeous shape to your papers so that you can make a little tag pocket there. So that's exactly what I did. I used also the layering piece so that I could mat it with the Prima papers that I was using. And then I just simply added this to the bottom of this particular page, and there I could fit my little tag. Now here's a different style of page. What I did here was I cut 2 pieces of the Keepsake Collection dies. I dry embossed the lavender one. I also added gold gilding to it. And there you can see me using a brayer to make sure that that adhesive reaches all of that paper there. And the reason being that I did use mixed media materials on that page. So this black piece of paper that you see here in the background measures 8 by 5. I place that piece on top. And here I have another one that measures the same exact size. So it's also 8 by 5. I place my little magnet there to match the one that I had used in the beginning. And I'm placing this decorative piece of paper right on top there. But as you can tell there, I had that one piece on the top. There's about half of an inch where I had placed adhesive and scored it. And then I also used a decorative edge die to cut out part of it. And here you will see how this fits. And this is just me using leftover pieces of paper to add decorative elements to this book. But now I can go ahead and place this as a topper to this page. And it's got that pretty decorative edge. Now what was left over, instead of tossing it, what I did was I cut it down. And this will end up measuring about 1.25 inches tall there. And what I did was to add this to the page to cover the hinge. Now this little piece of paper, again, left over from having cut my papers, it measures about 3/4 inch. So I just placed it there as a decorative piece. And this is now going to go on that page as well. And this is just one more way that you can decorate your book. So here is going to be what helps me close that page. What I did was I cut the little flower out of that keepsake collection. I added it to that decorative page. I used my crocodile to then punch a hole right through the center. And here I'm going to be adding a gold brad. This is going to help me close that page by using a piece of trim that I have here. And I did add one of the little silver colored tags there by cutting that out of holographic paper. And here, these other little tags also come with another keepsake collection die set. I can't recall if it's the same one or not at this moment, but what I did here was that I added hot glue just to make sure that that adheres onto that trim really nicely, and that way that will not come off. Now here is that 8 by 6 inch base page that's going to go into my book. And what I've done here was that I used dies from the keepsake collection, one of them here in that dark lavender paper, to add that decorative trim. But before I add it to my base or my book, I'm going to mat this page here. So I used the Prima paper that I had cut down just to be able to cover that base piece of paper. And you're going to see me here place this pink ribbon because I wanted to add a little bit of shine to that edge. And now that ribbon was not long enough to cover the entire thing, but no problem there. If you have dies, you can definitely improvise on how you decorate your pages, and you'll see here how I go about doing that. This is going to be a side pocket, a side loading pocket. But here's what I did. To cover that ribbon that wasn't long enough, I took a decorative piece of paper that I had cut down using that ticket shaped die, and I covered that up, and I now have this pretty ribbon that goes all around the entire page. And this is what I'm using as the base for that other element that I had made. I remove the adhesive backing, and now I can add that to my hinge. And this will have adhesive only on 3 sides of that page, and you'll see why. I'm now adding what I had made with those leftover pieces of paper, making sure to add adhesive, of course, on the corners there too, to make sure that this is nice and strong. And this is going to be a side loading pocket, but it's also going to have that pretty element with that closure there that I can open, and that pretty ribbon that goes all around the page. So I just wanted to give you guys options of different ways that you could decorate these books. I love playing around with the dies. Now this is the smaller one out of that keepsake wallet collection. It has almost like a scalloped edge. So what I did here was that I double matted it, and I added one of the clips from the other keepsake book tabs, or I'm not sure what they're called, but I thought that those are really pretty. So I cut one of those out, and I did alter that by backing it up with vellum and then adding the chunky glass glitter. And it's just a cute little tab that you can add to your pages. So this one will adhere to the base page, which again measures 8 by 6. And this is going to go right on top of that, the black page. So here you see me removing the adhesive so that I can add this to my book as well. And this is going to face the back of the book, but that's one page style, nice and simple. And I later add another little envelope to the corner of that page as a little tuck spot. But this page will go on top. Now what you see here is an 8 by 6.5 piece of paper that I did score on the side. You can tell that on the side there's that little flap. But what I did here was that the paper that I'm using to mat this page is that heart-shaped paper. What I did here was that I used another memory book collection die, and I cut out these 2 little flaps that I then adhered the tabs onto the back there, as you can tell, of that decorative piece of paper. And I also added the little magnets. So what you see me doing here is placing the magnets to make sure that they correspond. And these little magnets kind of fly around all over the place, but they correspond to the magnets that are inside of those little flaps. So that's what I'm doing there, is trying to make sure that I find where was it that I placed them so that I can add my adhesive to the back of this piece of paper. And now that I have that all situated, I can cover my paper with adhesive, and those tabs that are on the front are going to close nicely. So this is just going to go right on top of that black piece of paper, and it eliminates bulk also. So here I'm adding the adhesive to the edge here, and that's that little tab that I had folded on the side. And what I'm doing now is using from the other keepsake collection this flap here that I had cut down, and with that hinge I'm now able to add this as just a decorative element on my page. And I did cut it out twice. I added a large magnet here, and that's now allowing me to close this page. But of course, to cover the magnet I needed another piece of paper, and that is why I did cut that out 2 times, because I like a nice sturdy page. So I just cover this entire thing with adhesive, and I remove that backing, and now I'm going to have a nice clean page when I add this element right on top. So this is of course going to be decorated. So I cut it out again in this light lavender paper, and just to let you know, I did cut this down about 1/8 of an inch away from that hinge, so that way when I fold my paper I'm able to fit that into this fold without it being too bulky, because if you don't cut it down you won't be able to close the page. The same goes for this piece on top, because this is going to go inside of the book. So here I'm just adhering this beautiful piece of paper right on top to cover the black. And here you see how this is going to correspond with the piece of paper that I had put initially. But again, I'm only placing adhesive on 3 sides of this, so that way I have a side loading pocket as well. I like to have hidden pockets in my books. Here what I'm doing is placing that page right on top, and this is going to match nicely because they both measured the same, which was that 8 by 6 inch piece of black cardstock. And I'm going to have my side loading pocket, but I gently start pressing that piece of paper. And just to let you know, these are just some examples for this type of keepsake journal or book or mini album, whatever you want to call it. If you do have any questions, please let me know. I am ending this video here. just because for lack of time I was unable to keep filming all of the pages that I added into this book. But if what I'll do is place some of the measurements in the description box below, of course. And I hope that this just serves as an example of one way in which you can decorate your mini albums and have fun just playing around with the elements that you have, the dies that you have in your stash. I hope that it gives you some ideas. And I'm also going to be linking the final video, of course, below, which was released before this one, showing you the entire book. And that way you get to see how I was able to decorate this with all of the gorgeous goodies from Reneabouquet, and it'll have links where you can purchase them, and yeah, just have a lot of fun making a book. And as I always say, I hope that you can be inspired and be blessed, and thank you so much for watching.